Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Extreme Improv chat show. My name is David Pustansky, and if you are hearing this on your favourite podcast app, do make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the share button just so lots of people will be able to help discover this. And also there is the video version, which may or may not have video, so don't worry. Just as we're recording this, I see the brief panic on my guest today's face, but there would be this available on YouTube and the Facebook page as well. And if you're seeing the video version, then make sure you go over and subscribe on iTunes or Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to it, or want to listen to this. And if you're listening to it, go over to the video pages and click subscribe there. So on my show today, we have a very special guest, all the way in Tokyo in Japan, Christiane Brew. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm super duper, thank you.
So the first thing that's going to go through everyone's head when they hear that voice is you don't sound very Japanese.
No, I don't look very Japanese either. I would do video, but as I think for most people in these recent days, I'm not safe for video at the moment.
Right.
I look like I've just woke up, even though it's 6 o'clock in the evening. No, I am British. I'm like you, David.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you from in Britain?
I'm a Cambridge girl.
Oh, cool.
And it's so nice not to have to say near London.
Yeah.
Because you speak my language, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's just an interesting thing. For people who you might meet in Japan, or if you meet people from other parts who you'd have to describe where you're from, is there anywhere else other than London that they understand the concept of from England?
If I say England, then that gives them an area to focus on.
Yeah.
The UK, no. Other than that, no.
Wow. Because I was trying to think like of big places like Manchester United. They might understand the concept of from the football team or something like this.
Oh, yeah, probably. If you say England, sometimes people say, "Oh, David Beckham,"
Yeah.
And I'm not a football girl. Never really have been. So it doesn't cross my mind, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, how long have you been in Japan?
I've been here for about, I think it's 8 or 9 years now.
Wow. And what led you there, and what led you to stay?
Well, I was on a beach. I used to live in Italy, and I was on a beach on a rainy Sunday afternoon when all the shops had shut, because that's what happens in South Italy. And somebody said, "Oh, should we go to Japan next?" I was a TEFL teacher back then. And I said, "Okay." And it was a 3-month contract. So I applied that Sunday afternoon, and I thought, well, if it's 3 months, if I like it, great. If I don't like it, then it's only 3 months.
Yeah.
And you've been to Japan, so you can probably relate to this. There is something about Japan that just gets you. So at the end of every contract, there was something that made me want to stay or discover more, and so I just kept renewing my contract.
I was do you know what, we can get slightly more into that, but I would say that I probably agree, just because as we were talking just before we began the recording, like I have been to Japan before, and we'd been in contact previously just about doing improv or comedy out in Japan, and so that's how we'd previously connected. But when I had been to Japan previously, it was since I've met my current girlfriend. She loves travel, and we've been to lots and lots of places, but by far my favourite out of any of them is Japan. And it's always the place I will even jokingly say when she says about some strange or weird place that I've never heard of that she wants to go next, I would just say, well, I'm going back to Japan. Because it's the place that I liked the most. What would you say is the thing out there that you like so much? Because I can list off a bunch of things that I like, and some of them are safe to say in good culture, and others will just seem like cheesy and embarrassing. But what are your things?
And I think you're right, it is an individual thing, because there's loads of people here who They turned up here for manga and anime, and
yeah, you're already dipping into my area.
And it's not my area. The closest Japanese culture I got when I was younger was watching Monkey at 6:30 on BBC Two.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, people in Japan fly on clouds and have wooden staffs. So it was never a place I was going to come. The thing that got me when I was here was, I think the first contract was just a feeling of there was more to discover. I'd only been to I used to live in Nagoya, which is 2.5 hours away on a bullet train from Tokyo. Yeah. And I'd been to Tokyo once, and I was like, oh, I want to go to Tokyo one more time. And then the second time it was a boy. So I came back for a boy. Right. He was rubbish. But then it was mountains. I discovered mountains and hiking, which is something we don't really have easy access to in England. Yeah. But Nagoya and Gifu and Mie, Nagano, just, the mountains are tremendous. And that's when I seriously got into mountain climbing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so like realistically, it should be my girlfriend that's doing the interview rather than me, just because she'll be able to do this a lot better. But she loves mountains and things as well. And I before we went to Japan, I was just like, I don't want to go climb. I don't want to. Well, not even that it probably counts as climbing, but I was like, I don't want to go on mountains. I'm going to fall off a cliff and die on a mountain or something. But one of her things out here is that when we went to Japan is that we had a 9-hour day where we just didn't go on it, but we just got to see Mount Fuji in the background, and that was one of her big things. And so on that day we went on. We went on a bullet train, but I don't think it was that day. We went on like a romance car and a ropeway and buses and a ship and all these different things just to see Mount Fuji vaguely in the background with some mist around it. But then the other thing we did is, and since like in the time since when speaking to my girlfriend about this mountain, she's like, well, that's not, and you might be able to give your thoughts on it, but she's like, that's not even a particularly impressive mountain. But the first thing I went to, my first mountain experience was Mount, what was it called? Fushimi Inari, where there's all of the arches go up around it in Kyoto. Are you familiar with that one?
Never been to it.
It was very cool. And what was so cool about it, because again, it was just like walking up a trail, and we only went so far up it, but there was just all of the arches and all of like these little buildings and things around, and it was one of my favorite days. And it was supposed to be the day which was more my girlfriend's name's Rachel, it was more a Rachel day, where I was more looking forward to video arcades and things like this in Tokyo. But yeah, the mountains are very cool, and as you can see, actually there won't be a video version of this, but as you can see behind me, we've since been to other places, including Alaska, and that was one of the mountains we saw there.
Nice. That's an impressive mountain.
Yeah.
I admire your mountain, David.
Yeah, so there's so I didn't understand the appeal of mountains, but I've begun to. So yeah, the other things for me was like I like video games and things, and so I was like, oh wow, Japan, that's where most of the big video game companies are and things like this. I'm into professional wrestling, so I was like, I want to go to the Tokyo Dome and all of the kind of culture and things out there. So it was a very exciting place to go, and there's something there which about like the culture, and everyone's so helpful, everyone's polite. We were out there. The only word of Japanese I remember now is that arigato means thank you.
Arigato. That was so British, yes.
Yeah, arigato.
Arigato gozaimasu, yes.
Sorry?
Arigato gozaimashita. So the Japanese accent is arigato gozaimashita. And you have to hold the back of your throat so it sounds even more high-pitched and clenched. Because I think everyone walks around with clenched butt cheeks in this country. Because they try not to mess up socially.
Well, it's an amazing thing. So the entire time I don't want to just make it where I'm just reliving my memories. I will ask you questions, I promise. But the amazing thing was the entire time we were in Kyoto, I saw graffiti precisely once, because when I noticed it, it'd been after about 3 days. I was like, oh, we haven't seen any. And then we looked out for it and we never saw any again. And it was literally as we were on a train that we just passed something at one point. When we went to Tokyo, there was a bit more. But the amazing thing, when we got up for an early start on a Saturday morning, the Friday night, there had been people out drinking because we were right in the middle of, Shinjuku, I think it was. I'm really
Shinjuku.
Forgetting the exact names now. And so it was a bit more, okay, so this is a bit more, a bit more lively, a bit more what you'd expect to see on a Friday night. But by 8 a.m. the next morning, it was everything was clean. There was the last couple of people cleaning things up, and it was amazing out there.
Yeah.
Very, very different. Very different.
Super different. I've gone to rehearsals, so I do theatre as well. So our rehearsals would happen Monday through to Sunday, depending on when cast were free. I've gone to Roppongi district, which is similar to Shinjuku. So it's a bit of a nightlife place. Things go missing there. Tourists are fleeced and whatnot, and can be dangerous. I've gone there at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and there's been people falling out of clubs and throwing up on the street, which made me feel very good because I was on my way to do Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing up. I'm responsible now.
Okay, so let's use that as a good segue point to come back on to you. So okay, so in my research, I did Google you, and I believe this is in fact you. In fact, I'm certain. So you have your website, ChristianeBrew.com.
Yeah.
And it's very good, just because often when I have guests on there, I just have to quickly Facebook stalk them to get a sense of anything. But you've got everything here. And so you've got about theatre stuff. We'll come directly onto improv in a moment. But because I had mentioned about some of the more pop culture things that interest me. So you worked on the video game Death Stranding, which recently came out. Now, I've had that video game myself, haven't got around to playing it yet, and lockdown is a perfect time for it. But okay, tell us about that, just because that sounds an incredible experience to be involved in.
Wow. It was what I consider to be one of the most luckiest things that's happened to me so far. I got to work with Hideo Kojima, who is an absolute genius, super nice guy as well. And how they found me was somebody saw me at an improv show.
Wow.
2 years before they cast, and they tried to find me and all the agents in Tokyo. All they had was my name, and they said, they went to different agents, said, are you representing this person? And they found me. So it's like a wonderful story. And I did the first audition, and I didn't get that part. I think that part was for Amelie. I'm not an Amelie. I'm way too tall and not very super graceful.
So Amelie is the character, just...
Oh yeah, Amelie is the character that Linda, the face of Linda, Wonder Woman. I'm not very good with names. So that's her character. I didn't get that one, but they were super impressed. And I came back for the second audition for another role, which is the role I got for Mama and Lockney. And I walked in. It was super intimidating. There was 6 of them on a long table in this empty office, a huge empty office. It kind of looked like something out of Die Hard movie.
Wow.
Video cameras. I didn't know who Hideo Kojima was at the time. And they all go, you're the one that ate the apple. In the first audition,
okay.
I'd eaten an apple. Of course, it was a mimed apple. but they sat there when I ate my apple, and they were like, "Oh, sugoi," because they believed I was eating an apple. Improv. That's the beauty of improv. That's the gift it gave me. And then when I got the part, I was just like, "Oh, super duper." And then I Googled Kojima, and then I thought, this is quite big. And it was just awesome. And the launch party was amazing.
Yeah.
I felt like a superstar. I'm just me, but it was what an experience. It was wonderful.
Yeah, so for anyone, because I can put a little bit of context onto this. So Hideo Kojima is the person who was previously with the company Konami and was the creator of the Metal Gear Solid franchise, which is one of the very big franchises and most well-reviewed ones that's been around. And Death Stranding, that's amazing. So as I said, I own the game. I haven't played the game. Does your character bear your likeness?
No, they've stuck someone famous on my face.
Oh,
I know, it's terrible.
That's an interesting thing, though, isn't it?
But if you watch, all of the body movements are mine.
Yeah.
And because of the way the motion capture works, the eye expressions are mine as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it's I still don't understand fully how the motion capture, how they place one on top of the other and mix it all up. Plus you've got the ADR, the voice recording of the other actors coming in as well.
Yeah.
I don't understand the whole process, but the production team said, okay, well this is what audiences will see. It's your body and it's your eyes. And that was great. And I was just like, excellent, but I'm not listed on IMDb as an actress. I'm listed as miscellaneous crew.
Oh, it's an interesting thing, just where over the last few years with everything with Andy Serkis and Gollum and King Kong, where they say about performance capture acting, how much of it goes to so if the entire performance is yours, but then they put someone else's face, or you don't physically see someone. So the argument was that Gollum should have been nominated for the Oscar. But it's but what you see has been computer made. But he's but it's my performance.
Yes.
So it's an interesting area.
In England, there's one award ceremony that they've just introduced, brand new. I think it's the Golden Globes is British, isn't it?
Golden Globe. No, I think that's American. Isn't it the BAFTAs?
Oh, I can't remember. Oh, it might be the Golden Globes in America then.
Yeah, the Golden Globes I think is American. Golden Globes is more TV, whereas the Oscars is more film. But in the UK, I think you have the BAFTAs. Right,
then it's Golden Globes. It had a G in it. I researched about award ceremonies for motion capture, because if in Japan, if you don't shout about what you're doing and promote yourself, then nobody really does it for you because you're a foreigner. So you've got to really be good at managing your brand and pushing yourself. And I found an award ceremony, and it was the first year they're doing it, but we've missed the window. So Kojima sent through all the different nominations for the music. The music is fabulous. The voice actors, the other characters, but none of the motion capture artists. So I've kind of missed that window.
Yeah.
But I'll know for next time.
Yeah, certainly. And I suppose that's a very prominent credit, and with that director, so it should open lots of doors and things. Okay, so just in terms of that, I do want to come back to improv, just because you said something really interesting about it a moment ago. But just in terms of if you're a British performer in Japan, does that mean that you'll niche, and then you can get certain opportunities where if they're looking for someone who's British or speaks English or something, that means you can race straight to the top? Or does it just mean that there's very little? Where's the balance in terms of being an actor out there?
So my accent when I first started, when I moved from teaching over into performance work, nobody understands it here. So everything was American. Slowly, I'm becoming more popular, and we do a lot of overseas and global work. And for the global work, it's fashionable at the moment for the British accent. So that's great. I'm also a character actress, so with the voice. So I do some video games, like lots of different characters and audio books. I work for NHK, so I do different character voices for narration. Oh, NHK is like the BBC equivalent out here.
Oh, very cool.
And some of like the big brands out here, like Uniqlo, American Express, and Citizen, IBM. I've worked with IBM. They prefer the British because it sells better abroad. In fact, I was nominated for a Voice Award because of a Citizen VP that I did for an award ceremony in London that has just been cancelled because of the virus. So that's been rescheduled to September. So there are opportunities here, but as I said earlier, you've really got to push yourself, push your brand, play the agents off of each other. So when Death Stranding happened, I had an offer come through from Capcom for Resident Evil. And have I just blown your mind?
Yeah, well, okay. So literally, do you know what the character or anything was in Resident Evil? Because
yeah, I'm Emily.
You are in Resident Evil?
I am, yes.
Who is Emily in Resident Evil?
I don't know, because I don't play video games.
Okay, so sorry, we're just going to segue onto this, just because. do you was it called Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3?
No, it's the remake. So Resident Evil 2020.
That literally came out in the UK at least about a week and a half ago.
April the 3rd, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, so who is the character? I've got a feeling there's a online mode or like a slightly separate game that they two comes together called Resident Evil Resistance, and I've got a feeling it's going to be a character in that because I've literally been playing that, and I've never been a streamer before, but because I've been working out all this technology, I've been playing Resident Evil 3, and I'm just trying to think. I've probably come across you whilst playing this in the last week, but. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a character in Resident Evil Resistance.
Oh, okay. It's my face and my body this time.
Okay, I'm just as you tell me about this, I'm just going to Google it so I can find this out. Okay, but keep going.
Yeah, it's my face and my body this time. But what I did was I played agents off against each other, and there was no restrictions with Death Stranding. I assume people understand that sometimes if you do a job for a certain company, like American Express, when I did a job for them, I wasn't allowed to do another credit card or finance company TV commercial.
Yeah, certainly.
So I contacted my agent and I said, "Oh, I've had an offer from Capcom. Can you check the restrictions with Kojima, please?" And it's just a way of letting people know without directly saying, by the way, Capcom have approached me for a job. In Japan, we have to do everything. You have to go around the houses and be a little bit passive about it, really. But it helps because then people know that I'm sought after for other jobs, and my agent has to work a bit harder.
Yeah.
That's all, really.
Okay, so I've just tried to Google it and I can't quite find it, so I won't just seem too distracted on this.
What are you Googling?
I was just trying to find the character that's got your likeness, just to see if I've come across it without realising yet.
Right, now, well, here's the thing. Do you remember I said you have to fight really hard to get anything done? So even with Death Stranding, we had to fight to get our names on IMDb. So because this is a much smaller role, my agent has been working with Capcom to try and get me on IMDb. They literally sent me the email the other day to say, "Oh, your character is Emily, by the way." And I was like, "Great, okay, let's get me on IMDb, please."
Yeah.
So you really have to push. So I imagine there'll be no trace of this until I keep pushing for another month.
I will help you find it, I promise you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So the thing I was going to come to about improv, because believe it or not, there is improv in the title of this podcast. The Extreme Improv chat show. But we can talk about all kinds of things. So that's absolutely fine. It's just nice to meet interesting people. But you said about that when you went to the audition, you had to eat an apple, that you convinced them because of improv. Now, I personally say to people when I teach, because I teach drama, I teach acting workshops and things, I say, I think that improv is the most useful tool of them all. And the reason I'll say is that, like, if you're just going to an audition and suddenly they throw something at you, just improvise this, or even if you're reading the sides, and they say, just try it like this. If you're an improviser, it means you're adaptable. And it means that you're probably going to, even if it's just playing with mime and object work and so on and so forth, it means that you won't feel self-conscious. You'll be able to dive straight into it. And if you find truth in what you're doing, you're going to give a believable performance. Is that, would you agree? What's your take on this?
100%. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was getting super excited, and I was like, yes. 100%. I have changed as a human being, as a performer. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for improv. I wouldn't be doing motion capture. That motion capture thing, you walk into a completely empty space and they say, right, this is the scene, go. And then you have to imagine the cars, the rock face, the other human you're talking to that isn't actually there. You have to pick up a baby. You have to, and if it wasn't for improv, I couldn't have done any of that. Or, well, I could have done, but it would have been a bit rubbish. Personal relationships, the auditions I've done, the adapting on stage, the communicating with cast members behind the scenes and on the stage, and trying new things in scripted theatre, and just all of the above.
Yeah, absolutely. So so when did you first get into improv as either performance type or even just as a like technique, as a tool?
So in England, when I was growing up a long time ago, we didn't have improv. When I was growing up, it was theatre. So I went to summer school, and apparently I did improv there. I now know that that's what I did, but it didn't have a label. I think it was freeze tag I played.
Certainly.
And I thought, this was fun. So I did theatre school for a couple of summers, and then I did no performance stuff at all for the next 25 years. Came to Tokyo, and as a way to not spend time with my colleagues during the day and in the evening, I found an improv class with Tokyo Comedy Store, who you visited.
Yes.
And I travelled, it was about an hour and a half door to door after a full day at work. I wouldn't get home until gone midnight. It was exhausting. But for that 2 hours when I was in the workshop, I was like, man, I feel alive. I can play, stress-free. And it was fun. And then, as I'm sure you can, and your listeners can understand, it just gets you.
Yes.
And then you're like, I want more of this. I want to do this. I want to be better. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it went from, I started having, I was invited to be on another show. And so I got a little group together, and we were terrible, really. We really were bad. But we'd rehearse in my kitchen. And as you probably remember, Tokyo houses are tiny. So there was, six of us rehearsing in a kitchen once a week and having a show every other week. And I just wanted to do as much as I possibly could. But seriously, performance-wise, so professional, if you like, actually earning crust from it, would have been in the last 3 years when I did India. I travelled to India, and
Is that for a festival?
Well, no, I had a boyfriend at the time who lived there, and I thought, well, I can't go there for all that time without doing improv. So I found a local group, ICB, Improv Comedy Bangalore, and I said, oh, can I do a workshop? And they were like, yes. So they'd not long started.
They got that principle right, at least.
Yeah. And they were all self-taught. So it was quite a safe place for me to start teaching, really.
Yeah.
And they were just so generous, and I worked really well with them. We did some virtual online stuff when I was back in Tokyo. I did shows with them, and I grew as a teacher, but also performer, because I realised that, well, as you probably realised, it's different playing with different nationalities around the world.
Yeah.
And I found the Indian performers so generous, and their ideas are very relationship based because of the intense ties with family. There was a lot of mother, auntie, uncle scenes, studying scenes, do your homework. That was a terrible accent. I'm embarrassed now.
Don't worry.
Yeah, so that's how it started. And I was on and off in India for 2.5 years, I think. And then they've of course, we talked about the festival, and they just went off and they did the festival, which was fabulous.
I think it was a festival which I don't want to commit to saying that I applied to it, but over the last couple of years I've applied to so many festivals. But I think it is one of the ones I have come across when you said about Bangalore specifically. So I've probably at least looked into that one. But that's great. Okay, so you mentioned about like if we are in different cultures. What I have found, which was so illuminating to me, especially especially where I've been, most improv festivals around the world will end up doing it in English. So even though you might find some things that aren't, so many international festivals, they will just take English as your show has to be in English. And the thing which I found so quickly is that if you can develop like a physical performance, so that you'll do things, not even so much physical theatre, but like physical comedy, just so that you use your expressions and physicality, it's universal. And that was the thing for me when I've gone from place to place to place, where it's like, okay, so there's people here from 28 countries, like so many people are German, so many people are Swiss, and so many people, when they're just like in the foyer beforehand, I can't understand them. But when I go on stage, if I just lean on the physicality, it works for people, you know, because one of the things, like, and I even had this experience a little bit when I went to the Tokyo Comedy Store. It was a stand-up comedy night, and I've done a little bit of stand-up. And every like nothing I did relied on the physicality, so that isn't quite what my the point of my story here. But there was one guy in particular, I can't remember the name to say anyway, but I think he was from Singapore. His material was so good, but all of it fell a little bit flat because his rhythm of delivery didn't quite work. I was like, oh, I know exactly what that was, but it would be like 10 seconds later, I was like, that's really clever. And you could see on his face, he was like, I think this is good, but there was something that just, the delivery was different. And so everyone there was like enjoying it. But it's like, this really told me that, okay, so I got up there, I didn't have time to adapt anything because, like I said, I've done a little bit of stand-up, but a lot of what I did was improv. A lot of it was just audience interaction, telling little stories and things. But I was like, not everyone's going to understand me here. And actually, I say that at the Tokyo Comedy Store, there was Americans there, there was Australians there was about 3 or 4 British watching this show. So I was okay enough. But for people that didn't have the exact westernized British English language delivery, I was like, okay, so that's a little bit challenging. And I've seen that in other places of the world as well. But that's why I've learned that if you can do a physical performance, it's universal.
Yeah, I've just realised you're saying Tokyo Comedy Store. Tokyo Comedy Store is improv. Stand Up Tokyo does the stand-up shows.
This was definitely Tokyo Comedy Store, but I was begging them, can I just do some just like pure improv with someone? And this is where I was trying to drag my girlfriend to do it, but they had got some stand-up night there.
Oh.
I'd be shocked if after 2 years I've been wrong this whole time. But
2 years.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, 2018.
Oh. Lots of things change. It's so transient here. Things have changed a lot. Anyway, you did comedy in Tokyo, so that's the coolest thing, really, isn't it?
It really was. It really was.
I agree on the physicality side of things. We do actually have a Japanese improv festival in Tokyo, May or June, I can't remember, before it starts getting hideously sticky and hot. And we do maestro with them, so we mix the international team with different Japanese teams that come out from Osaka, and there's different teams in Tokyo. There's loads of improv teams in Tokyo, Japanese improv teams. I didn't realize how much. And as you say, it's playing scenes using physicalities, but also in Japan, they use tone of voice quite a lot, like big stuff. It'd be like overreactions, for example. Do you remember Takeshi's Castle?
I do, yes.
That.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Quite well. Joe, so much of like I said, like as you mentioned earlier about like anime and manga, so much of it is like big characters, big reactions, like big voices, and then you get like the polar opposite. Like one of the interesting things that has come up for me in improv is when you do something like film, theatre, and television styles as a game, and you get an improv crowd in, you can be guaranteed of a couple of things that will come up that never get mentioned probably in most day-to-day life until you're at an improv show, and that they will suggest that they want you to do film noir. And I've said to people, what is film noir? Because no one really knows. It's just something that people shout out at improv shows nowadays. And the other thing that will sometimes come up is people say Japanese no theatre. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And I looked it up about a year ago, because as soon as it comes up, like this thing that you end up doing is you think, well, this is going to be like Dragon Ball Z or Godzilla, basically. But I was like, no, I need to look up what this actually is. Because if as long as you do something that people associate with Japan, people have been okay with it. But when I looked up what it actually was, it was one of the most bizarre videos I've seen on YouTube, it was very slow, very deliberate. And at times it was like, I think this was a comedy where there was like someone hunched over and doing like a funny little walk, and then I could hear people laugh. I didn't understand any of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very long.
Yeah, it was about an hour video. I watched about 5 minutes.
Oh, well done. Well, Kabuki, that's like 3 hours long. And again, Kabuki and No are very different things. I don't understand everything about the differences. Kabuki is masks, maybe? Oh,
yeah, sounds about right.
Ask a Japanese person or a Japanophile. There's plenty of Japanophiles.
Yeah. Okay.
Around.
Just quickly on that before we come back to some improv stuff. How integrated are you out there? Like how much of the language are you able to? Are you fluent? Do you get by? Or and how much after? Did you say 9 years? Are you still integrated or not integrated out
there? So you have to make a super huge effort to. If you want to integrate into the culture and get Japanese friends, there are. I know people that have done it, and they've basically cut themselves off from foreigner community because they want they're here for Japan, and they're here for the culture and the people. it's very hard to make friends with Japanese people. It's very hard for Japanese people to make friends with Japanese people because it's introverted. You have your honmai tatamai, which is like your social face and your behind the scenes face.
I'm definitely going to learn that phrase. I'm going to play this just so I can say it.
Oh yes. We would say two-faced basically in England. So for example, my housemate on text will send faces with love hearts on. But then when I see her, she's acting completely different. Confuses the nuts off me, really. So it's hard to integrate. In terms of language, the Japanese are quite shy. They're listening and reading, they're quite good at, but speaking, not so much, because in the way they're brought up in their schools is lecture style. So there's no interactive communication happening when you're learning a language. So you can ask someone on the street, excuse me, where's Shinjuku Station? And they'll either run a mile or they'll try and bang out a bit of English, or you strike lucky and you've got a chatterbox who's just been waiting to bust out their English because they were away for a year in Canada or something, and then you can't get rid of them.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So fluency wise, I'm not fluent at all. It's a bloody hard language. And you've got to be really, I think it's an hour of Italian is 3 hours of Japanese in terms of study time.
Right.
You've really got to put the effort in, and I can't sit still. I've got ants in my pants, and unfortunately, but I get by. And there's Google Translate, and my pantomiming skills work really well. Oh, except for when I I've lived in several. So I lived in Egypt for a while, Italy, China, and Japan. So you go to the store and you'd be like, this is pre-smartphone, chicken, and the sound that we would say cluck cluck, or for a cow we'd say moo moo.
Yeah,
it's different here.
Ooh, what do they?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember, but it's so a dog. We would say woof woof.
Yeah.
It will be something completely different. Oh, I can't remember. Nah.
Don't worry.
Sure, your viewers can Google it and go,
they can put it in some comments somewhere. But okay, coming back to improv, do you do short form, long form? What formats do you like? Do you have a preference? What do they do out there?
So we've I do all of the above. I do short form, sort of theatre sports style, and not theatre sports, Keith Johnston style, but then a little bit of UCB style with Pirates of Tokyo Bay. The Keith Johnstone stuff I do with Tokyo Comedy Store. I do long form, like montages, radio plays, but also improvised musicals. That's with Tokyo Comedy Store. And that's it for improv. Oh, and I MC as well, which is improving constantly, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, but that kind of ticks pretty much all of the different major things you can do. Short form, long form, musicals, it's all across there. Do you have a favourite out of those?
Oh, yes, I do. I've really started to get into LA theatre with Dan O'Connor. I watched them do Twilight Zone over in Dubai. I went to a festival in Dubai 2017, and Edie Patterson, who's married to Dan, she's also in Vice Principals and The Gemstones. She's a phenomenal improviser. I watched her and I was like, this is what women in improv can do. Okay, yeah. I want to be like her. So she really inspired me to start working differently and harder, smarter, to do the improvised plays like Twilight Zone, Jane Austen, which suits my voice quite well.
Yeah, I should imagine.
So mono scenes. So I'm really into that at the moment, and it brings in the. I play for emotional truth. That's one of my workshops. Emotional truths, because if you're gonna be sad, have a reason and make sure you're not doing caricature sad. So that's what I'm into at the moment. I love it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I'm trying to think, in one of the festivals I went to in the US, I don't know that I'm going to remember it, but there was an improvised Twilight Zone. I'm just wondering how many of them there are, because it's quite possible that I saw this same show, unless there might be several Twilight Zones doing the circuit.
There might be.
But that dinged a bell when I heard that. Okay, so you said about mono scenes. Is that basically solo improv?
Mono scenes. We might call it different, but mono scenes like a 45-minute scene. In one location.
Oh, okay.
So you have eight actors, for example, on the stage, and you've got different areas on the stage, like the bar areas over there, the sofas here, and so you can have private, air quotes, private conversations about the people that are in the bar area, for example. It just makes it's quite challenging. We also use that for like Star Trek. We do a Star Trek one where you have the control deck, and then you have the rooms off to the side, the rooms off to the side. It's just a scene that lasts for 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay, that sounds very. Wasn't what I thought when I had mono one. I was like, is that just solo? But have you ever done any solo improv?
I would love to get some more training. Actually, I've seen Jill Bernard do it.
I saw her last year in Alaska, which is behind me.
Isn't she phenomenal?
Yeah.
Again, a strong female improviser that makes a female improviser like me stuck in a bubble over here. It opened my eyes up to the fact that A, improv can be more amazing than it is now, and B, women can be amazing in improv. So it was a very inspirational trip.
The show I saw her do was a one-woman improvised musical. I'm trying to... Drum Machine? Is that what you've seen?
Was it Drum Machine? I don't know, but I know the one you're talking about.
Had like something that gave like a different beat at a different tempo, randomized, and then she would sing a song over it. But she played every part in the musical, and it was an amazing technique, which I can demonstrate a little bit for you, but the audio listeners, you just have to trust me what I'm doing here. Where she'd be in one voice, one physicality here. She'd say something, and there'd be this moment of suspension where she'd then transform into the next character.
Yes.
And I was like, that's very, very clever. Because I've done a lot of long form, but especially with Extreme Improv now, the main focus has been short form, because it was the show that took off. But one of the short form games we have is where you'll have to do like recreate a film as every character. And so we'd been playing with some of these techniques, but just like looking at the physicality and stuff, I was like, there's some tips I can pick up just from watching this performance. There was some very clever stuff in there.
Did she do a duet with herself?
Yeah. She could possibly do it where there was 2 or 3 characters at once.
It was amazing.
And a dog. I'm trying to remember now.
It was, fantastic. And I was just like, yay, women in improv.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of that, like in the UK and like in America as well, there will be like all female groups, and there might even be a few like festivals that make this the focus nowadays. But what is that like in Japan? What is the ratio?
Not very good, really. I would love to have an all-female group over here.
Yeah.
I would also love to have more women over here, because I've been in the bubble so long. If you like, I'm sort of the female in Tokyo that's been doing it the longest.
Sure.
And so I have to go international to see what else there is, to challenge myself, to push myself. So there isn't enough women, and for me, I don't think there's enough women that take it as seriously as me. Like super passionate, like you have to go to.
Generally, or just in Japan?
In Japan.
Yeah,
in Japan. I'm not like in Bangalore. I would go over there and I'd play with the Adamant Eves. So it was the first all-female improv group over there. I'd play with them, and that was great, because it was all women, and we could do men characters and women characters and animal characters. But I'm a bit clueless when it comes to the UK and America. Oh, New Zealand. They have. I did a improv marathon there last year, and there was a couple of all-female groups on the lineup. I went over there I created a new format, which was quite exciting. That's why I was there. And then I was invited to come back to the first Auckland Improv Festival in April. I should be there now.
Yeah.
I should be teaching there and performing there right this evening, but they had to cancel it.
Yeah.
So there are groups out there, but I'm not part of one.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have an online female improv group, David.
Do it. Like, why not? Like, have you done much online stuff in this whole lockdown business?
Oh my God. Right. In that case, then, if anyone is listening to this and you are a woman and you want to be part of our female global improv group, please let David know and he'll put you in touch with me, because
Christiane, where is your plug? You've got a website, at least. Give the plug now so people don't miss this opportunity.
So my performance website is www.christianebrew.com. CHRISTIANEBREW, as in special.
There you go. Okay, so by all means, find out. I'll put that in the show notes on the Facebook page and on the podcast page as well, so people can find it. But by all means,
what a great idea, David. Thank you.
So what was I going to say next? Oh yeah, have you done much online stuff, or is this now going to be the dawn of it?
Well, have I done? Well, I've started hosting open mic nights.
Yeah,
which I love now. I'm getting very good at audience interaction, even though there's no vocal interaction. I've found that I'm quite good at doing that, so I want to hone that skill. I started off doing lives. I was cooking, as many people in the rest of the world. What do they call it? Quarantine cooking or something.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Something like that. And I thought, I'll make a cake. I haven't made a cake for 30 years or whatever. And I thought, I'll do a live. Why not? And so 2 hours before the show, I was like, right, muffins and stories, because I'm a storyteller in Tokyo. I have my own storytelling show. So I've already got an audience who know me as a storyteller. And it lasted 2 hours.
Wow.
I don't know how, but there was many stories. There was, I mess up every time because I'm not a baker. And then I got messages and they said, "Oh, can you do this again next week?" And I was like, "Okay." So the first 2 weeks I did solo, and like first week I broke the whisk. The second week I blended in the wooden spatula into the oranges in the blender. I don't know how I did that, but something always goes wrong. The third week, I got a guest on, a professional baker, and so I did a Zoom, and we basically had the Great Self-Isolation Bake-Off.
Amazing.
Yes, so it was like audience interaction. There was polling involved. Do I use walnuts? Do I use pecans or pecans, as some people call it? Vote at the end. So I promoted the show, and then the week just gone. There's an improviser called. Do you know Derek Flores in New Zealand?
No, I've never been to New Zealand.
So he plays a lot of the festivals and comedy clubs. He has a character called El Jaguar.
Okay.
An ex-pro wrestler from Mexico.
Love it.
And he is a scream. I've known him since 2017, and he recently came to Tokyo, and I produced his month of shows and workshops here. And I said, "Do you fancy coming on the show with me?" And he said, "I'll ask El Jaguar what he thinks." And then he did, and it was meant to be an hour show.
Yeah.
We went for cookies because it was nice and simple, and it lasted 2 hours.
Wow. And he did the whole thing in character, did he?
Yep.
That's great. I've never done improv where I've started off as like a recurring character or a base character, but it's something which I intend to.
Oh.
It's a cool idea. I've seen it a few times where people, it's all improv, but they've got their base character developed where they repeat this character. And I've always found that fascinating, but I haven't come up with what my character should be yet. So
have you got a character that you feel really comfortable with on stage, or that brings you joy, and you're like, "Oh yeah, he's coming out or she's coming out"?
I don't know. Like I've done so many characters, and like I know I've got some stock characters that I'll lean to, but they feel a bit too generic because they kind of. There might be like a character who's intelligent, another one who's very selfish, another one, or like selfish and mean-spirited, another one that's very, very downtrodden. And they just feel like they fit into lots of scenarios where just as I'm doing it, I'm like, well, this is the same voice I've used a dozen times before. And it's not that I've thought, right, I'll do this character. It's just that if the scenario, I think, okay, so this character is going to be very confident or whatever, he just turns into a version that's come up many times before, but they've never developed with a name or a recurring like profession or something like this. But it's something where I feel like, okay, I need to develop a character and see if I can bring them back.
That I'm going to give you homework now, David.
Okay, do it.
So that could be your challenge, is to do just take one of those characters, and with the acting background, I would also suggest doing a backstory for them. I know it's not improv.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it helps build character, and that's what we do for scripted theatre. So write the backstory, and then find a piece of clothing that helps you feel more like this character. And I think the trick is, well, it is for me, is that you take it up to a level 10.
Yeah.
And then bring it down to find where that character sits comfortably, but is different enough to your others.
Yeah, certainly. No, that's I like that technique. I like the sound of that.
Send me a video.
Yeah, I will work out what character it will be. I do worry that, like, no, this is going to come across bad, but I do worry that, like, the natural character I think would be the strongest is the more sarcastic, mean-spirited kind of character.
Fantastic. How British.
Well, exactly. The thing that's quite, one of the things that, like, I would say I'm a shy person. I always would. And, like, my girlfriend always says, but you do improv. How can you stand on stage? I was like, well, that's my outlet, which is often a story you hear from just actors in general, but especially people that do improv. But one of the things, like, when I'm doing improv, it's like, well, you get to say things that you'd never dare say in real life. And like, if something pops into your head, in real life, normally there's a filter, then there's a check, then there's paperwork to be signed before you then say something. And you always say, especially being British, you'll say the thing that is going to not upset people, things like this. And it's not that I go out of my way, because I probably, even though I'm not selling it, I try to be very positive on stage. But just when the opportunity comes up where you can play the villain, you can be that heartless character. It's so much fun. It's so much fun to be the uncaring character, to play the bad guy. Because sometimes you'll, even in an improv show, not that it's pantomime, you'll do something where you're like, I just know that the audience are going to react to this because I'm going to say like the most heartless thing or something, whatever someone's situation is. And that's always fun. So I think that's probably where I'd go, but I'd probably have to just keep in check that I don't blur the line with myself and just have a change in personality there. Okay, so I will begin to wrap this up, just because I realise I've had you on this call for an hour, and I really did make it. Yeah, it's been an hour. It has, maybe even slightly over, because we had a few minutes where we were sorting out the tech, but time has really flown by. But it'd be great to definitely have you on the show again, because I feel like we have scratched the surface on interesting stuff that we could talk about.
It always happens with me. I'm like an onion. You've just taken the first 2 layers off.
Well, there you go. That reminds me, this almost the analogy that Shrek gives in the movie Shrek. There's something there about like they're like onions, and Donkey's like, what about cakes? They've got layers too. People like cakes, but yeah, I can't quite remember the quote. It's been a few years.
That's funny. I'd rather be a cake than an onion.
Well, exactly, and that's what Donkey was arguing to Shrek, that there are other things with layers out there. But yeah. Okay, so just one of the things that I noticed that I will ask about, there's so many things that you've got, because you've got, like I said, a great website, which by all means, anyone listening to this, ChristianeBrew.com, you'll be able to get in touch about an all-female group very soon, I'm sure. But there's lots of things on your CV, which is just great for running a podcast to be able to ask about. But the thing that jumped out to me is you did a Godzilla film, I think. What was that? So I take that's not the American Godzilla film. That's like one of the native Japanese Godzilla films, was it?
Yeah, that was back in 2015. I filmed that. That was my first Toho Studio film role. It came out in 2016, and it was it was the longest, most laborious movie to sit through. Even Japanese people, for Japanese people, that movie is like Marmite. Right. They either love it or hate it. It's really heavy on the dialogue, and the Prime Minister is painted as somebody who doesn't really take action. So, but the special effects were good. I really enjoyed those. And the scene I was a scientist, nuclear scientist called Karen Heath. So I was American. I did an American accent for it. And the first thing you see of me on screen, massive 30-foot screen, the doors burst open. I go through holding a silver suitcase full of nuclear scientist equipment, and you see my arse filling up 30-foot screen, and my trousers are just a tiny bit too small for me because they're Japanese size, and you can see my arse just eating my trousers slowly as I storm into the control room. So yes, I've been
immortalized.
Oh gosh, yeah, yes, but it was great because I got to work with some again, I didn't know, but they're famous Japanese people, and it was great to actually work with actors, proper actors, instead of the overreactors.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, but I was going to say something like that. Like, obviously, I don't know the film, and even if it's not like the biggest part, it sounds like got some importance if you're coming in with the nuclear material and stuff. Being in a Japanese film, like I know, and I haven't yet achieved this in my career, but I'd love to be in one of these big franchises, big cult things, because I just feel like you could end up where you're and you've got a few credits. If you're in Resident Evil and Death Stranding, you were set for life. You could be doing like conventions and stuff where you just like have your photograph, and then it'd be like Death Stranding, Godzilla, and stuff like this. And I just love the idea of being at these kind of things. But is there that kind of fandom out there where, like, because you've got these credits, it's like you could get further and further into that world?
Yeah, there is. I didn't realize how big the gaming community or the Godzilla community was. There's some Godzilla nuts out there throughout the world. Not nuts as in bad.
Yeah, but, like fanatics.
Yeah, fanatics. That's a nicer way.
Yeah.
So that my Twitter followers increase slightly. I'm quite low key on Twitter, but the Instagram and Facebook, people find me on Facebook. My Facebook is now, it's not really a personal thing. It's turned into Christiane Brew, the performer. Sure. So generally I accept them if I kind of know them or they send me a message. If not, then just follow me on Facebook, because that's where all my performance stuff goes. So I built up followers just from this, because they're like, you were in so and so whatever movie, and I don't know them really.
You don't know what, the people or the movie?
I don't know the people.
Okay.
No. Yeah. So I keep a lot of personal stuff off Facebook now, and just leave it as, these are my shows, this is what I'm doing now.
But okay, so do you not have like the Facebook like page as well as like the personal one, or it's gone too far that you can't really separate it now?
It's gone too far, and it's a job that I need to do. Is like, do I turn this into Christiane Brew the performer and have it like, with the like this page, or do I just leave it as it is? Because I mean, it'll be just such a headache to
start from scratch on that again.
Yeah. So I kind of leave it as it is, and there's different things you can do with the different pages, and I like the amount of stuff I can do with the page that I've already got. It's not a priority for me. People know who I am, and I'll decline a lot of people.
Sure.
Unless they send me a message and tell me why, and then I'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that sounds fair. Okay, so Christiane, is there anything major that I should have covered that we haven't covered, where you're like, wait, you didn't bring up this? Is there anything that major that I should have brought up?
Yeah, my childhood.
Okay, so actually, or is this just going into therapy sessions?
Well, let's have a therapy session now, David.
Okay. Well, from what I know, it might be like, well, David, I'm a massive child star, and like I was one of the original. I can't even think of it, like one of the original Goonies or something like this, and I just didn't realise.
Oh, yeah, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? No, I don't think. I'm going to get off the call and I'll be like, oh man, that was massive. Yeah. I should tell him about that.
Well, this is just something I've learned to do, just because about a year ago I did a podcast. I won't say who it was, but it was just with someone, and I realised after the call that I'd missed off their most prominent thing, and I was like, that seems so silly that I forgot. It's because I hadn't done my research properly at the time. That's why it's so great you got the website. But I always now say, like, is there something I should have brought up? It's like, what's the thing that everyone asks you that I've forgotten?
Well, actually, there is something. The thing that I'm known for in Tokyo and now in sort of Australia and New Zealand is the storytelling.
Yes, I did see on the website. Just tell us briefly, well, doesn't have to be brief, but just tell us a little bit about the storytelling.
Yeah. Okay. So the show is called Perfect Liars Club, and they've actually got one in London and DC. So same style. Four people tell a story, unbelievable story, but only 3 are true. And the audience interrogate in the second half and then vote on who they think the liar is. And the show is an absolute scream. When people get it wrong, they lose their shit. When they get it right, the atmosphere is quite disappointed and deflated. So it's my job to make sure that it's very difficult for them to...
It reminds me, what was that? Because obviously you'd...
I lie to you.
Oh, that. But what was the other version? Call My Bluff.
Oh my God, you're
Remember
talking
that?
my age now.
Yeah.
Yeah, years ago.
Call My Bluff. Yeah. And so the new version's called Would I Lie to You?
I believe the new version
Yeah,
is
'cause I can't even remember who's on that one, but yeah, that I think is just a version of Call My Bluff as well.
Rick, Bob Mortimer,
Yeah,
and Vic
could be.
Reeves are regulars on that show. So you know it's good.
Yeah, okay, so, but your version, is it slightly different in that there's one truth and so many lies, but in your one, there's one lie and the rest are true?
Yeah.
That will make it harder to tell the lie amongst them.
It can be hard. It can be very easy if the liar doesn't commit and, they're like, But
okay, so if you're telling the truth, do you purposely do things to make it seem more like a lie then?
No, I ask storytellers, the story's about 6 to 7 minutes long. I ask storytellers to just go out there, tell it authentically and just have fun. And then if they're not a seasoned performer, naturally they'll be nervous. So I just let them be themselves. And then the audience are like, she touched her face 4 times. She must be the liar. And it's like red herring, really.
Everyone becomes a junior, forensic detective, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, it's hilarious. I do a sleuth booth at the interval and people get interviewed and they say, well, I think it's so-and-so because of this and that. And then at the end, I'll speak to them afterwards and they're like, well, no, I didn't get it right. I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I've got my first online Perfect Liars Club actually on.
Okay, plug it.
I don't know when this goes out, but it's Friday the 24th.
This will go out later today, just because during lockdown, whereas in the past I would get a bank of things and put them out weekly. As soon as I've got, and because I'm doing lots of live streams and lots of different types of podcasts now, as soon as I've got them, I add on the intro, outro, and I just put them straight up.
Nice. Oh, you're doing fantastic work, David, because people need content, people want content, they don't realize they do. If it weren't for performers, then life is pretty boring, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the interesting thing just within this, and I assume it's much the same out there with everything locked down, and it might be to a different degree or whatever, but basically about a month ago it became in the UK that the acting industry was well, it's a non-essential business, and so it was just stopped. And over the last month it's all risen back up, but just online.
Right. What about EastEnders? I'm worried about EastEnders. I miss it.
I think the idea, I'm not certain of this, I'd have to ask my mum, but I think the idea is that they might be putting it on 3 days a week rather than 4 or something, just to eke out what they have got.
It's only on for 2 days a week.
You
don't have to ask mum. Okay. Yeah, it's the only show I watch over here.
So they normally film it 6 or 8 weeks in advance. So I think it's going to reach the point sooner rather than later, but 6 or 8 weeks. But then if they've at half, that will give them 16 weeks perhaps to be able to start filming things again. But they might, imagine if they start doing EastEnders where everyone's in their homes and it's just characters communicating over Skype or Zoom. That'd be brilliant. I'd watch it.
Hilarious.
You know, you can just imagine Dot Cossum's still a character, isn't she? She's still she hasn't left it yet. So just imagine the whole episode is just her trying to set up a Zoom call and the webcam. I would watch that for an hour.
It would be nuts having a fag hanging out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Wouldn't she? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, and you could that's very good. You can almost imagine, because it's June Brown, isn't it? You can imagine that they'd send her the kit, by courier or whatever, to set this up and we'll film it. And then she's just trying to set it up and she doesn't realise, but it's live. And then whatever she does would just be improv, and they'll just put it out on 8 p.m. on a Thursday night or whatever.
I would watch that. Watch that.
I think there should be more stuff like that. Whereas we're talking about character stuff, I think any actor out there, I saw a thing with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost where they did a phone call, and they were basically recreating a scene from Shaun of the Dead, because obviously that's a bit apocalyptic, where they're saying, right, this is the plan, and they tailored some of the dialogue to fit the current situation. But you could just get any of these actors just being their characters during lockdown. I think that would be brilliant.
Yes.
You don't need like a $10 million budget or something to get Tom Cruise to be Mission Impossible, during lockdown, and there's some scenario he's got to solve wherever he is. That'd be great. They could all do it.
And I'm sure people have kept costumes, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. Where it would be fantastic is where it suddenly turns out all of the Star Wars and Star Trek actors who have stolen these elaborate prosthetic costumes.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have like a mocap suit that you just borrowed from Death Stranding?
No, they're very expensive. I think they're noted. We walked out with a head camera and
yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a yoga outfit which feels very similar.
A yoga? What is a yoga outfit?
It's an outfit you wear for yoga, David.
I know, but I was going to say, well, isn't that just like gym clothes day to day? I thought you meant it as a comparison, as if it was going to be like a morph suit of some sort.
No, it's just a skin tight. Imagine, oh gosh, it's the tightest thing, and it really makes your lower bits sweaty.
Okay.
So it's like a leotard. You have the trousers that go on with the skin tight, and then you have a leotard with poppers in the crutch that you have to pop up. I believe that Japan's mocap suits are a little bit less fancy than the LA ones.
Sure.
So they're tight, and I'm very long, very long. So I have to have a man's suit.
Yeah, just because. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Just that if like heights and things are different out there, because I can't remember specifically, so I don't want to just be that I've now made this up in my head. But I think I felt quite tall, and I'm not that tall.
I'm very tall over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's an interesting difference out there.
Yeah, I feel like Godzilla in a dress. Basically, that's in one of my stand-up sets. I feel like Godzilla in a dress next to the Japanese ladies.
Wow. Yeah. Oh wow. So this has been a lot of fun, Christiane. I will begin to wrap this up here. Where can people find you? Put any and all plugs you need out there, and especially if you've got this show that you're about to do.
Great. I would love. I've got a load of UK people coming because it's 8 p.m. on 8 p.m. Friday the 24th of April. So that's 11 a.m. your time, I believe. Perfect Liars Club. You can either go to my Facebook page, Christiane Brew, or go to Perfect Liars Club Tokyo Facebook page and find it there. The live bake shows are also on my Facebook page. So follow me and make your Sunday evenings that much warmer and better and sweeter.
Yeah, that sounds like the commercial for it. Fantastic. Okay, so for everyone watching this, my name is David Pustansky. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I'll spell that for you, which is Pustansky. And of course, this is the Extreme Improv Chat Show, part of the Extreme Improv Podcast Network, of which there are many different kinds of podcasts at the moment. The main thing I would like to plug, though, is that we have the Extreme Improv Extremed, which are the live streaming interactive comedy shows that we're currently doing UK time, which is the important thing I need to always mention, which are generally Wednesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. UK time. We've attempted a couple of early matinees, and that way we've had some international guests. We had some Australians doing it last week, which was quite cool. Nice. But we haven't got a matinee lined up again yet because they've got some more moving parts to arrange. But yeah, so for any of those, go to facebook.com/Extreme Improv or youtube.com/Extreme Improv. And the major thing you can do to support us on either of those is click the like or subscribe things. So with that in mind, Christiane, I will say thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
For you, is it evening now?
It's nearly 8 p.m. and it's dinner time. I'm hungry.
Dinner time. I haven't had breakfast yet, so we'll go eat at different time zones. But yeah, thank you so much. Until next time, everyone. Goodbye for now.